Hello and welcome to Heartrepreneur TV. I am your co-host, Velma Gallant, and I'm super excited to have you here today. We have a wonderful guest with us today. His name is, I didn't ask you how to pronounce your name before I
Give it,
got on here.
give it a try. Let's see.
Okay, Luis
Yes.
Camillo.
Yes. Let's go.
Camillo, was that right?
That was perfect.
Oh, awesome. Okay, it helps that I had a Venezuelan friend.
Yeah.
Okay, and today's show, we are talking about content is profit. So it's going to be a great conversation for our listeners at Heartrepreneurs with Terry Levine on Facebook. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'm excited to have you here as well. So Luis is originally from Venezuela. He played soccer in Europe, got kidnapped in Venezuela, cold emailed 300 plus NCAA coaches, and got a D1 soccer full ride scholarship. Now that's courage. Started business with his brother selling vinyl stickers door to door right after graduating college. And then they launched Content is Profit Show as a Hail Mary to save their business during the pandemic, turning it into a top 2% show in the world, top 25 marketing show in the US, and becoming part of the HubSpot podcast network. He's also husband and father to Luca and Mateo. And Mateo just arrived this week, didn't he?
Yeah. Saturday. So just a couple of days old.
That is awesome. Well, welcome to the show, Luis. I'm super excited to have you here today. So, you shared in your introduction that you gave me, you shared like an abundance of courageous experiences and moves that you've pulled in your life already. And, like cold emailing 300 plus NCAA coaches, like that is courage at its extreme, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So what inspired you? I'm just going to start with your business because that's what we're all here for anyways. What inspired you to start Content is Profit show with your brother?
Yeah, absolutely. So Content is Profit, the poster you see in the back here, started in March 2020. So right when the pandemic kind of, was swallowing the country. And at the time we were freelancing, we were helping local businesses, right? So I had in 2019, I had a job as a fitness studio manager. That was like my day job. So I ran, these boutique franchise networks. And then on the side, I was helping my brother with our business and trying to help local businesses with like sales letters, email campaigns, all the marketing agency stuff. Our message was actually the anti-marketing agency. So
Awesome.
we'll go in and we'll ask, what do you have? What are you doing with your agency? Do you like it? And if the answer was no, it's like, sweet, here's what we can do. And that attracted, a lot of clients, but not the right clients. And we were struggling at the time to kind of scale. So what happens is in September 2019, I quit my job to, go in with Bistros full time. And in March, a few months later, in March, everything closes. And within a week, about 80% of the people that we were serving called us and they're like, hey guys, there's not going to be paycheck coming this month. Like, this is what happened. And we're closing doors. And it was a really hard pill to swallow. And, in a sense, blessing in disguise now that it's been a couple of years now, but it was very terrifying at the moment. So what happened is like after going for a walk that same day, Fonzie goes and he's like, hey, we were trying to get out of this anyways. We're trying to like see what the next step was because we were going a little bit crazy. We had no capacity. We had no team. And maybe this is a good thing. So we had 60 days of runway as far as like the business go for us. And we're like, sweet, let's just go all in our podcast. And at the time we had a lot of mentors and coaches that were pushing us to publish at some degree. So all we did at the time was Facebook Lives. And they're like, you guys need a podcast, figure it out. And we're like, sounds good. So we were serving this one guy that serves as an inspiration, but he was producing 3 podcasts a week. And we're like, that's the framework. That's what we're going to be doing. And after learning from a year before experience with our first podcast called Brews and Bros, thank God that didn't go through because we would be alcoholics by now. But we decided to create a show that is frictionless, right, to produce. We're like, okay, what cost for us not to publish before? And it was all these elements where post-production, setup, it was just a lot of time. and then we had to edit the whole thing, and that cost because we had no team for us to
Mm-hmm.
not execute, right? So we started adding friction to that process. So the process for Contents Profit was the complete opposite. We're like, how can we produce this so we actually don't have to edit or don't have to do this? And the answer was going live 3 times a week. So that's how it started. And then after that, we found that the show was an incredible platform to create amazing relationships, get referrals, test the market, see if we were actually talking to the right people, make connections. And we really started using the show as a big lever to fuel the business. And then since then, in the last 2 years, some of the things that you mentioned has happened, right? We are top 2% shows in the world, top 25 in the market. Hotspot Podcast Network just announced last month that we're part of them. So I think it's 25 shows together with like John Lee Dumas, Jenna Kircher, these amazing people that 2 years ago we would only see as these incredible entrepreneurs at the top. And we're like, what? So not only that, but the business has expanded. We really niche down in what we do, who we serve. We do have a team now. So things have changed radically since.
Awesome. Awesome. So I have a couple of questions out of this. I've been taking some notes while you've been chatting. And one of the things that you mentioned early on, when everything kind of hit, was that you guys were looking to kind of shift anyways, because you didn't have the right clients, you didn't have the capacity in the team, and everything like that. So there was a mindset of this is an opportunity, right? Which I think is really important. But, so you talked about not having the right clients. And then later on in your story, you talk about having the right clients. What was the change there?
Many changes, right?
Okay.
So for starters, we started our own framework, right? So we had to like really test the framework of our product. So we produce content in a very particular way. And that was the thing that we were selling. So we started inside of a community that is known for the info product side of things. And we were trying to sell a service. So just right off the start, it was a really challenging thing because we started discovering that maybe a lot of people didn't have the cash flow to support the system or to support the service, or their business was not at a level that our service was going to serve them the best way possible. So 2020, we grabbed a lot of traction very fast as far as like the service goes, with the connections and the people we met at different events. And that was really cool. But then 2020 happened, 2021 happened, and it was like the roller coaster went down big time on a very big steep, because even though the service we were providing was really effective, then the business on their side was not supporting what they needed to pay for us. So a couple of things that we started to identify was like, okay, well, is the messaging right? Like, what are we actually selling? Are we selling time back? Are we selling ease of flow? Like, are we communicating with the right people, right? So for us in our service, we basically give the time back to that person and the ease of production of the content, right? So there's a line of beliefs that need to happen before that. Somebody that I need to convince that content is the way to go is probably not my right client. So if I'm spending a lot of time educating them on that, maybe they're a fit for a different product, but they're not a fit for the service, because during the fulfillment of that service, we're going to have a different interactions where we're going to have to re-educate that person. And then that just creates a lot of friction. And that's what we were finding. People were staying with us 2 months, 3 months, even 4 months. And then we're studying the people that were staying with us for a full year, 8 months, 9 months. What was it? What's different? So we started asking these questions on the back end, right, to our client, be like, tell us a little bit more about your business. And we started identifying these points that then served us to create our own matrix of qualifying the right people. And we're like, sweet. So one of the massive changes that we did was increasing the price point. So, most people would think, just lower the price. And we're like, no, we more than double the price of the service. And that allowed us to first connect with the right people that could afford the service. And second, shows that they had a solid system on the back end, right? And then we could go. So just having those conversations up front really helped.
Okay, so there's some really juicy stuff in there. One of the things that you said was you were spending too much time educating. Now, of course, marketing is in essence educating people, right? To
100%.
a certain degree. We're providing them with information. but you're spending too much time educating them. And I think that's a really important point, because one of the things you said earlier was, the beliefs, convincing them that what you have is what they need. And that is, educating too much, because if I'm the right person, if I'm the right business for your product, there's some echo going on there. I'm not sure what that's about. Okay, looks like we lost him. So we'll wait and see if he can come back in. I know he was using a new computer, so there might be some little challenges with respect to that. But as you're listening, I hope that you're getting some juicy stuff out of this. Knowing who your right client is. And he also mentioned about increasing the price point to make sure that he was connecting with the right people that could afford his service. So, here he is. Okay, you're back.
We're back.
That was weird. It just started echoing. It was like what I was saying was repeating over and over and over again. I'm like, this is really weird. So we left off talking about spending too much time educating the wrong people, which I think is a really great observation for anybody else. If you're having to convince people, teach them too much why your product fits, then they're not going to be your right fit. And then you also talked about increasing your price point so that you were actually only speaking with those people that could afford the service that that you were providing. One of the other things that you said that really resonated deeply for me, because I'm the kind of person who likes simple processes. I like to simplify things down to a science. And you said that you took on your product was frictionless to produce. And I really like that, because that tells me that sometimes complicated or sometimes too much is not the right direction to go. Sometimes simplifying and making your job that much easier, it makes sense to me, because again, you're increasing your price per hour, or your value per hour, by making your time easier.
Yeah. So one of the things that we encountered at the very beginning, I remember jumping on these calls, discovery calls or sales calls or whatever, and I remember showing the behind the scenes of the process, right? Because we took a lot of pride on developing this whole process, like these 7 stages, and we show them. And then what we found really quick was that we started overwhelming a lot of people, and they thought that that's the thing that they had to do. So we're like, no, like, I'm showing you what we're doing for you, right? And then, when people ask us today, it's like, what do you guys do? We provide daily content. That's the easy part, right? Like how we do it, that's the secret sauce, right? So, but for you as a client, all you got to do is like, you're going to have daily content forever and ever and ever, right? No matter if you produce or not produce content, because we have safety nets, right? And then from there, we can answer any other questions. So that helps us big time, right? Because that shift on how we actually present the message. And then if they want to dive in and they want to see the behind the scenes, awesome. But for the very beginning, we scared a lot of people, because what they saw is what they thought they had to do, and then just added a lot of friction, created overwhelm, created confusion, right? So at the end of the day, we started having these amazing conversations like, okay, well, what does success looks like to you, right? As far as like when content comes in, or your show, or multiplying your content. And that was also another of the qualifiers that we started asking. We're like, well, if success for them looks like a massive amount of followers right off the bat, but there's no paid media budget for it, then that they might not be the right the right client for us, because that's not what we do. And then we started asking these questions where like, okay, this person really fits the persona that we can help the most. Not that we cannot help the other ones, but again, like we talk about, are they closer, right, to that belief that we need them to meet them in? So imagine here the microphone. This is like the goal, right? Somebody's going to be standing right here in front of it. So for them, maybe a conversation, a 15-minute conversation on what the process it looks like and what the result is. That's it. That's a small tap that goes in. But if we find another one, sorry, over here, that they're starting to believe that content is the way, they haven't produced content ever. They have a lot of friction. They're hung up on maybe equipment. What's the equipment that I gotta use? I haven't produced my first live video. Well, for a massive content production company to come in for daily content, that might be a long road. So now that's the other thing. We didn't have products for those people. We didn't have something that we could offer them. And that was really frustrating. So we started to also develop those. And then for those that are along those lines, we're like, okay, no worries. You might not be a fit for the service, but you might be a fit for maybe 3-month coaching, so we can get you into consistent publishing, right? And then from there, we can leverage the service. Or here's a cheat sheet that you can use on your show to make sure to ensure consistency, you know? So these are different things that we've been able to learn over the last 2 years that has helped us massively.
Okay. There's a lot more juicy stuff in there, because you were talking about presenting the message, right? Yeah. And what I heard was there was a bit of a transition from showing them how you're going to help them to what are the results that they're going to get from you. So, yeah. And then that makes a lot of sense, because I know that there are a lot of people who are, and I've done this. I'm sure there are a lot of people within our Facebook group that have experienced this as well. I've got this certification, and I've got this way of doing this, and this is how I'm going to get you from here to there. And it's not the conversation that gets them in. I mean, that's talking to their logic brain, but that's not talking to their emotional brain that gets really excited about what are the results I'm going to get.
Yeah, it was a massive shift, right? Because we're coming from that. We're like, okay, we're in these courses, we're in these masterminds. This is what we see. This is the behind the scenes. And it was our way to showing them kind of how we can help them, and maybe validating, right, the service. But at the end of the day, it's what's in it for them, what's in it for the client, what's in it for the people that trust us with their content, with their product. And we by asking these questions, I remember one day we're like, the sole objective was to jump on calls with the people that have been connected with us on social media and our clients, and see what is their perspective on their end. What are the issues? What are the things? So we did this whole workshop internally where we have a massive glass wall, and we had all these issues, all these problems, and we're like, okay, here's where we can help. Here's where we can potentially help. Here's where we cannot help at all, right? Maybe it's capacity, maybe it's team members, maybe it's resources, maybe it's knowledge, right? But identifying those things is very important. And that gave us a true North Star of like identifying who's that person. And since we started doing that, communication with the right client has been incredible. Communication with the people and setting up those expectations once they come into the agency and start working with us has been incredible, because expectations are very clear. Client knows exactly what they're getting. We know exactly what we're getting from them and what we're giving them. And then we can set these goals and have a really honest relationship moving forward.
Okay. I really like that. Again, you were pointing to how when you're going in the house, you're actually validating yourself. So something to look at there. And then going into the, what's in it for them. It's about supporting them, helping them, giving them the results, and creating the right expectations with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, I got to go look at my other notes here. Niching down.
Yes.
That's another thing I think is really important to talk about, that you did. How did you narrow down who it is that you wanted to work with? Was it part of that process where you were looking at what are some of the problems that you guys can solve? What are the problems you can't solve? Is that part of that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So before we decided on our service and Content Momentum as a program, we had 7 different things that we were doing for our small business owners, right? This is the 7 things. And I remember having a very distinct conversation with Fonzie. We sat down and we're like, we're not leaving this room until we decide what is the one thing that we're going to do. And we sat down, we mapped it out. We identified the 7 areas. And we had a really heated argument because I was leaning towards what people kept asking for. People kept asking. We were known at the time as the video guys, right? And we will come in and we'll actually shoot a bunch of stuff inside of your location, and then that will turn into different types of content for social, for paid ads, for different things. But we will actually go physically to the location to record these things. And then that's what people kept asking for. And Fonzie he loves copywriting, he loves to write, he loves email campaigns, and he loves that side, right? So we were like, well, nobody's asking for that because like this is the thing. So at the time, we had no funding, right? Like there's no investors in our company, there's nothing, and we had to rely on our service and our sales skills to actually move this needle forward. So what's the closest ball to the hole again is the thing that they're asking for. So that was ultimately what we decided on. And then once we decided on content, inside of content there's so much stuff. So we're like, okay, out of here, where are we going? And I remember having we were having a conversation in our show early with Todd Brown, incredible marketer, right? And he talks about the 3 P's of differentiation, right? It's product, personality, and process. And all the conversations before that on niching down were like, you need to niche down on the type of client that you're gonna serve, right? So we're like, well, we don't want to be the content guys for fitness studios, we don't want to be the content guys for dietitians, we don't want to be that. So how can we niche down? How can we like make sure that our product is unique? So we decided to niche down in the process, right? So that's how we started developing our process called the M2M. So which is the way on how we can produce a massive amount of content very quickly, very consistently over a long period of time, right? So that was the secret recipe, and we're like, sweet, that is the process. So now, to do this, what is the thing that we need to be successful at delivering our product? Well, we need consistency of creation. So we need somebody that creates content in a consistent basis. We need long form content, right? So initially we started like, who produces that type of content? Podcasters are a good start. And later I'll tell you why podcasters might not be the best choice. Content creators, personal brands, people that speak on stages, all these things. So we started listing this type of people that create the one thing that we need to execute. And then we started literally trying to have as many conversations as we can with them. And that's when the show comes into play, because after 40 episodes of me and Fonzie recording just us, our thoughts, what we thought about the industry, what we thought about how to turn the content into profit, right? We're like, oh man, like we're running out of things to say. So we started inviting these incredible entrepreneurs, and we started asking them, how do you actually using content in your business to actually produce profit, right? And all these things started to appear. And some of them were crushing it, some of them were not crushing it, some of them realized that, oh my gosh, I might need more content. And we're like, okay, this is the type of, we started looking for indicators. What type of people are actually creating the type of content that we had? And then we started looking on the back end, be like, what type of business do they have? Is it a coaching business? Do they actually do real estate? Real estate, we have a few clients in the real estate side of things, in the commercial real estate side of things, because there's a lot of money that moves into that, right? And they're willing to invest. So we're starting to look at these indicators, and we started creating what that persona looks like. And then we're like, okay. And then we had the next phase, which was the pricing, right? So we discovered that we're pricing too low, when we actually had somebody actually tell us, be like, you guys should be charging like $6,000 for this. And by the way, we still do not charge $6,000 for this. But the reason I do not, buy with you is because I thought you guys were too early because of your pricing structure. And we're like, oh, okay, well, that's a tough pill to swallow, because first of all, like, look, we missed this opportunity, but it also was a very important lesson, because we're like, oh, okay, pricing, it might be a different way that we might be looking at pricing, and maybe we can use it as a tool to actually filter the right people, right? And that's when we started looking into it and started playing with different price points, and starting also asking the client, asking these prospects, be like, how much do you think this is worth to you, right? And then we're starting those conversations, right? How much is time worth to you? Like, are you really willing to invest this many hours? Right. And then also that allows us to identify what type of business owner that person was. Was it really a business owner? Was it an operator? Right. How do they value time? And that allowed us to like leverage the show big time to continue to have those conversations.
Oh, there was some juicy stuff in there. Oh, I liked how you shared that one individual said that your pricing was low, so they thought you were in the beginning. So they actually equated low price to low experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow. Oh, there's going to be a few people looking at that one, because that is definitely a mindset shift. that is required for that.
And by the
And
way,
I
we're still working through that one, right? Like we're still like, okay, is there something else that we can offer? And I remember last week actually, this opportunity came out, and the way that we pitched it back to them, it was a very unique way. It's the first time that we actually did this, and we're like, look, we will be extremely excited and happy to work with you if this is the price. But if this was a price a little bit higher, right? This is when you're going to receive 100% of resources. We can create individual teams for you. Will be the absolute dream. Is that something that is possible? Right. And at the end of the day, like you open the door for that negotiation, but now you give them a range, right? Because, and that to us, that was a light bulb moment, because in the past we are like, well, we have to like say this one price, and then it's like this one opportunity, and then that's it. Like if it's a no or a yes, if it's a yes, great, but if it's a no, there's no room to really go there. And obviously there's a lot that goes in the back end, like what are the margins, right? Like is it team members, like is it, what does the fulfillment look like, right? And obviously we've been iterating and working on the process for 2 years now to be able to do that. But I think the pricing conversation needs to happen more often, because for us it was a massive shift.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'm hearing quite a bit of um, mirroring what Terry teaches. Knowing your numbers so that you can make reasonable choices when it comes to all of that kind of stuff. And the one thing that we're going to do, I mean, Terry talks about that. And the other thing that she talks about is having a specific process, having your process that is, unique to you and what you offer the client. So there is a lot of amazing stuff that you shared there that absolutely mirrors what Terry teaches in her work as well. So some good things in there. So if you were to give just one piece, well, no. Let me rephrase that one, because content actually covers quite a bit of stuff. I mean, people, when I think of content, I'm thinking of, the social media posts, the images, the videos, the reels, the stories. Like there's so much possible when it comes to content, just in the social media aspects of it. And there's even more beyond that. If I were to look at one direction for, creating content that would, increase my bottom line, what is one of the best directions for me to go in your experience inside of the content world?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So again, we go back to what is your objective, right? You mentioned increase my bottom line. At the end of the day, that's awesome, but we have to probably dive a little bit deeper on what is your bottom line. So what are your products, right? Is it coaching? Is it consulting? Is it high ticket? Is it low ticket? Right? So we have to establish that one. For us, how it worked, we were offering a mid-tier service, right? So range from $5,000 a month to $2,000 a month, and then from there we're like, okay, from there, how can we actually, what's the fastest path to cash, right? So if I post a bunch of content on social media, that might not be the fastest path to cash, because that person might see it, might like it, might not engage with it. More than likely, they would not engage with it, right? And then what happens is like, that's a point of contact. It's a point of contact, but it's very low in the scale of like influence from me to that person to be able to have a conversation. So we're like, okay, who makes the decision? Like, who do we need to talk to? Is the person the business owner, the person that maybe an operation manager? Like, who is that person? And that's how Content is Profit played a key role in there, because Content is Profit as a podcast, as a live show 3 times a week, gives us the platform to be able to add a ton of value to our dream client, because our dream client values content, right? So we're promoting them. So that's a big plus. That's a point of contact in there. But also it gives us an opportunity to develop a relationship. So to add a ton into that relationship bank, to then do an ask and be like, hey, by the way, like this is what we do. Would you be interested in seeing the behind the scenes or having a conversation? Is this something that serves you? And more than likely, last time we saw it was 95% of the guests that we've had on the show say yes to that conversation. And then all the clients that we've had come directly from the show. We have some people that come from the audience side of things, but they're not ready for the product, right? And that's when we had the conversation of like, what are the other things that we can do to serve them? So I think is trying to find that fastest path to cash. So if you have a full build up content, sorry, a full build up like product platform, right? You have like your lead magnet, and then you have your mid ticket, low ticket. Like if you have that built up and you have improved, you have proven record that that works, and that's how you bring people. Well, maybe the route is create a ton of content and add paid media on the back end to be able to drive traffic, right? Do we have
Mm-hmm.
enough time? Those are different things. So how we like to illustrate this is we like for people to really take a look and find their how. Right, there's a lot of frameworks, there's a lot of stuff out there, there's a lot of content telling you how to do content, right? Like
Yeah.
it's very overwhelming, and it was for us. Like we tried everything. We tried individual Instagram posts, we tried Facebook lives for a while. We're like, but at the end of the day, it's like, what is the fastest path to cash? We need money to be able to eat. Like how do I replicate these conversations instead of hiding behind a screen? And for that, it takes, a lot of pelotas, how we say back home. Like not a lot of people are willing to do that. But also at the same time, the show provides you with a platform where you can distill a bunch of content and keep your social media running with content on the back end, right? And that's how you build
Mm.
your own system.
Okay.
It's like, how can I leverage 1 hour of my time where I'm developing a relationship with the person that I can talk to, that can make a decision, that I can serve them, but also that 1 hour we create content that can be leveraged for the social media. So that's taken care of, right? So I remember early in our journey, we heard a lot of feedback like, you have to focus on one platform. You have to focus on just one thing, and that is your platform until you cross X amount of money. That's very dangerous advice, because you don't know how long that takes. You're
Right.
putting the sale in something external. It is telling you, hey, you're ready for this, and it has to come from within. So our concept that we like to share a lot is the publishing pyramid, and is kind of like an inventory on how you can start doing this, right? So at the very top, how we understand this top to bottom. So at the top, you have your resources. How do you scale, right? So you have money, you have people, you have staff. Like, so look, imagine people that you really admire in the content world. For us, at the time, it was Gary Vee, right? We're like, okay, we want to be ready like Gary Vee. We want to publish everything, but we don't have, $30,000 a month to pay for 3 TikTok specific editors, right? So we understood that we don't have the same resources as the people that we want to copy or model or emulate.
Mm-hmm.
So right below that is like, what is the capacity? So for Gary Vee's TikTok team, they have 3 editors that work full time. That's a lot of capacity. That's a lot of time that they can dedicate to that. For me, what is my capacity? Well, at the time that we started the show, it was 3 hours a week that we can actually do this live, and that's it, right? So be super honest with the time inventory or your resources. If you have a team, if you have a VA, if you have a video production side of things, like, or you hire an agency, what is their capacity? So make sure you do an inventory from there. And then right below that is obviously the your consistency. What is your consistency cadence? So if we look at top content performers, right, that have massive resources, what is the consistency? They're consistent every single day, multiple times a day in multiple platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can I be consistent? Maybe I start with 100%, but if you can leverage your time to be consistent in a couple, 100%, right? But you have to take that inventory. I cannot tell you exactly where are you. For me, at the time, we can only be consistent right before the show started in Facebook Lives, one time a day for 10 minutes a day. That was it. That was my time inventory. That's what we did, and that's how we landed our first client, right? So after that, it's like, okay, what is my message? And that's probably the important part. That's the base that supports everything. Like, who am I talking to? Who's my dream client? What are the problems that I'm solving? What are these things that I can help my client? And that's where education comes in from the beginning of the interview, right? That's how we educate people in the content. So now once we have
Right.
inventory of that, we can start building from bottom up. So now I understand my message. So for example, we help people turn content into profit through a very specific framework, right? Right after that, we are consistent. With the show, we're consistent 3 times a week. And on publishing platforms, we're consistent on promoting the show at least 3 times a week, multiple times a day, tagging our guests everywhere, right? And then we have micro content going out like crazy in multiple platforms, right? Now we have a system, but that was built up, right? After
Right.
that, it's like, well, what is the capacity? Our capacity to create the show 3 hours a week, but our team capacity, they can create 80 episodes a month if needed, right? That is the measured capacity. And then at the top end, the resources. So obviously we connect that content, fastest path to cash, right? So we get those resources and then we can reinvest and continue that movement. So the cool thing is you can create those publishing pyramids per platform, right? For us, the way that we see it in our business is the show, and the show feeds everything else with the micro content. But some people can do a publishing pyramid for your podcast, a publishing pyramid for your Instagram, a publishing pyramid for your TikTok. And it might look different, but we have to be very honest. What is the inventory and what are the resources that I have to be able to create this system that ultimately is going to work for you?
There's some really good stuff in there. Some of the stuff that I heard at the beginning of that was, what is your objective? What are your products? So taking that inventory of what you have to offer, and then you also mentioned something about what kind of influence is your content having? Is it like a short like, or is it actually really engaging them, and the value of the content, what kind of value you're presenting with your content, what kind of relationship is it building with your client, with your target audience, and that kind of thing. So it sounds like it's not just as simple as, oh, I should be putting out some really funny memes on a variety of platforms. There needs to be a bit more strategy to it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Big part of this is understanding, let's say, if you're the one creating your own content, understanding what is the content that you like to create, right? Because that's the only way that we can be consistent. Like if we look back and we like, well, if I don't enjoy, Belma, tell me something that maybe you did one time in your life and it was like, I don't like this. For my wife, is changing the oil in her car, for example, right?
Yeah, I kind of agree with your wife. I'd rather find somebody to do that. Absolutely.
Okay, so that somebody for her is me, right? And she's like, maybe you go and you take this, and because she doesn't like it, she won't do it. So it's the same thing with content. So if it's us creating the content, like we have this term called content umami. Umami is a Japanese concept where when you eat and you're satisfied, you feel good. Like you don't feel like this like bloated, you don't feel like heavy, right? So what is your content umami? What is the content that you can create initially, right? If it's you creating the content that can satisfy that need, because that's the only way that you can be consistent. Once you're consistent with that, then you start looking at like, how can I connect that to my fastest path to cash? So an example for us, we tried YouTube, we tried Reels, we tried the short term, we tried dancing, we tried Facebook Lives, we tried all these things. We tried taking amazing pictures on Instagram and putting them on Instagram. Like we probably tried every single platform. But the thing that filled us up was the podcast. And it's a long form content that we have these incredible conversations. And if everything goes, the podcast stays forever because it feeds our soul. We feel good doing this. Now, guess what? How do we connect the podcast? Well, the show guest that comes in, that's our fastest path to cash. Can they be a source of referrals? Can they be a source of inspiration? Can they be a good contact in the future, long term, to do an ask? Are they the dream client? So that's how we connected that. And then after that, because the resources are connected, right? Then we can reinvest and build a team to do everything else. So for example, right now we're building Reels and TikTok specific team, right? Which now we have the resources. So now that we have that framework, we're like, sweet. So we create our podcast, which is the favorite type of content that we like to create. We don't like dancing. We like dancing, merengue and salsa, but in parties, we don't like dancing for TikToks, right? But it's like, okay, for TikTok, like this specific style, what can we do? So then we just find the who at that point, because we have the resources to be like, hey, how can we leverage the show to be on TikTok? Or what do you need for us to create on TikTok? And as we start creating consistently, we're going to start seeing these indicators that are going to give us feedback. Is it working? Is it not working? A lot of personal stuff in my profile grabs a ton of traction because I'm very connected with my family. People know about my family. I'm very open about it and they connect with that. So it's funny when you see my feed, you see podcast content, right? And then all of a sudden I post something personal and I grab a ton of traction. And then I grab that leverage to talk about business. And then the people that discover me at that point, they're like, oh, that's right, he has a business. And then we continue the conversation, right? So these are these things that we have to consistently execute, right? To be able to gather feedback and create more conversations.
Well, I have this sense that this conversation could carry on for another 20 minutes or more. And we've actually already gone 10 minutes over. I so appreciate your time, Louis. This has been very fascinating. I know for myself, I mean, I did my first interviews back in 2004, and Terry was one of them. And I had a podcast from 2007 until 2011, and I did it all wrong, but it was so much fun. I loved it. So there's a lot that you're sharing in here that's making sense to me, and I'm sure is making sense to the members of the Facebook group. There's so much that we've covered, and I know there's more that we could have covered. So I'm looking forward to, you know, the information that you start sharing inside of the Facebook, and the support that you start giving to our members. I'm really looking forward to that. So
Absolutely.
I think that's about it. I know I need to wrap this up. And like I said, I'd enjoy this conversation a lot more. So for those of you who have been listening on Facebook or are going to be listening to the replay, definitely share your comments below so that Lewis and I can engage with you on those. We'd love to have the conversation with you. And for those of you who end up finding us through YouTube, come on over to Facebook and look up Heartrepreneurs with Terry Levine. And you're going to connect with more heart-based business owners like myself, like Lewis, like Terry, and so many of our amazing family here. So thank you so much for your time, Lewis. This was amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Emma, for allowing the platform. And Regina, what's up? Huge shout out because they have some amazing comments going in the thread.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, and have a fantastic day.
Bye, guys.